And thank you so much again to all of our amazing presenting sponsors. So we really appreciate all of you and what you allow us to do to stay in dialogue and of service to our nonprofit community. So thank you again to all of our amazing sponsors. Julia Patrick joins me today, of course, or I join her, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, and her personal email address right there if you wish to reach out to Julia. Myself, Jarrett Ransom, also known as the Nonprofit Nerd, CEO of the Raven Group, as well as my direct email if you wish to reach out to me. And today we are doing something a little different. We're calling this a masterclass. And as Julie and I look at how the times are shifting and how are you building yourself up? What professional values are you investing in right now to, as I just, said in the chitty chat session, that's often hard to really say together, is, as we look at the pandemic and the changing times, the only constant is change, but really what might you be doing or curious in to build your own professional value right now during this time?
Right. And, Jared, I think that you and I have been very thoughtful and observant about how things are changing dramatically. We already knew that the nonprofit sector was facing a talent crisis because we have so much retirement. We have so many people getting ready to move on, to get out. We have a lot of burnout in our sector. We have a lot of new education opportunities. I mean, for these folks that are retiring, they came up through the School of Hard Knocks. So really, there weren't specific programs that they could go for higher learning, right? Now we have a whole crop of, people under the age of 40 that have had literal bachelor's to master's to even doctorate level programming that's specific to nonprofit management. Mm-hmm. And so it's really changing our sector. I mean, I know you have your MBA, and that's what makes you so valuable in the interim CEO space, because you're more of a technocrat approach blended with all the philanthropic values and ideals, right, that the market wants. Mm-hmm. So we thought what we would do is spend some time talking about how to be best prepared and build your professional value. We have Katie Warnick coming on from Staffing Boutique on Monday, who's going to talk about how staffing is working now. And we thought if we did this segment today, we could arm our participants with all those things that they need so that as they navigate into this job training or job sharing or job relocation or all these different things, they're going to be better prepared. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting dialogue to have. And I'm not saying go out and get, yourself ready to, get a different job. I almost think, Jarrett, that this is a little remedial and maybe like crisis management.
I feel like it's one of those things that we often say, oh, I need, as it's here, I need a new updated, headshot, and I need all these things, but they never become priority and they never really get done because you're always, reacting to all the fires that are going on right now. Julia, in my own circle of influence and professional colleagues and connections across the nation, there is a lot of talent out of work. There is a lot of talent right now out of work, right? And I know, like myself in 2009, when I became a reduction in force, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was certainly looking for full-time jobs, and those weren't easy to come by. And so that is, in fact, when I started the Raven Group and truly became the nonprofit nerd. Of course, that was a bit of an evolution, the nerdiness in me. So a lot of my professional colleagues and connections right now, Julia, are also doing that same switch, that, they're seeing that the value of some contract work is much more attainable at this time than potentially securing a full-time job. So all of these things, while they may seem remedial and, oh yeah, I know that, but really, when was the last time you sat down and either invested in that professional headshot? And I'm not talking your own selfie, and all of that. When was the last time you really sat down and said, okay, I am going to be intentional about my own professional value and branding.
I love that, Jared. And I think another thing too that is like something we don't really talk about in our sector, but for upward level management, C-suite, if you will, there has been a dearth of talent, or it's like you haven't needed all this stuff because jobs were just a poppin', and people were calling you up and people were trying to poach you. I will never forget the day that I was at. In fact, I was at with Terry Axelrod in Benavon. I think we were in Dallas or Houston, I can't remember. And I was there with a team, a board team that I was on, and our CEO was there. And I came around the corner, and another nonprofit from another part of the country was trying to poach her to see if she would come to work for them. And I was like, what the hell? I was like so shocked. And she wasn't looking for a job. It was in a different sector, but they knew her. They had seen her. They thought, this gal's super sharp and she needs to be on our team. And this has been the reality for a lot of our nonprofit leaders. They haven't needed to really navigate a tighter market. And so that's what we really wanted to talk about today. So when we talk about your comment, professional headshot, don't sit in the front seat of your car with your seatbelt on and take a selfie. Hello, that makes me crazy. Do not do that. It does not speak to what you're doing and what your capacity is. Updated resume. This is a really important thing. And Jared, I would love to get your perspective on this, because for somebody who's been out of school for a long time, what are your thoughts on this? It's like, how developed do you celebrate yourself or your achievements? How do you communicate that, do you think?
On LinkedIn, honestly. So in fact, the resume and the LinkedIn, right, I believe go hand in hand. Me as a professional, contractor, have my own business. If a potential client reaches out and asks for my resume, I don't have a resume to give them. I can certainly create one, but the good thing is on LinkedIn, that is where I keep my client contracts, all of the work and projects that I'm doing relevant and fresh, right? And I update that with successes, with logos. So I really utilize LinkedIn. And then it has this amazing tool that you can save your LinkedIn page as a resume. So you can actually turn that LinkedIn page into a resume per se on a PDF. So in fact, the most recent interim executive director position that I secured, and I've shared that very openly through this entire show, they did want some of my background and history and resume, and I simply did the PDF trick on LinkedIn, and that's what I sent. And yes, it was more than a page, but when you've been out of school since 1999, right? It's like you have a lot more than a one page. And I think that Katie would agree. Katie with Staffing Boutique, and in fact, she did mention this previously in another show, Julia, is that it's okay to go beyond a one page, but you definitely don't want to have like a 10-page dissertation, right? So there's that fine line. So I actually use the LinkedIn page as my true platform. And of course, I do have a website for me as a company, as an owner, but that LinkedIn is really important.
I think that's genius. And I know a lot of people start from there and they kind of do some back end research, especially when now there are a lot of people looking for jobs, or a lot of organizations looking for different types of jobs or, talent. I also think there are going to be a lot of people that don't want to go back to work in the regular format that we had prior to COVID-19. And so that's going to be a market disruptor or labor disruptor as well. People that are going to be like, hey, my kids aren't going back to school, or I don't want my kids to go back to school, or how does all this work? So I think you're right. LinkedIn is one of those places to be really active. And if you are looking for a job, I think it's really a great idea to connect with those people just to plant that seed to say, hey, I'm looking for some work. If you know of anybody. I've noticed Jerry Diaz, who has been a guest several times. He's been great on his LinkedIn saying, hey, I know this organization. They're looking for this type of talent. And it's not like a client of his. It's not, anybody, I mean, I'm sure there are relationships that he has, but I think that's really a great idea for LinkedIn. It
Yes.
positions you as a steward of thought leadership and people, people being engaged. Mike has a really good comment. He says, resumes are tricky. If you ask 10 people their opinion on the same resume, you'll get 10 different opinions.
That's true. Maybe even 12 from 10 different people. Right?
And you know what? I'm a big believer in that's okay, because I don't think you want to look the same as everyone else. That's just my approach. It's like, hey, a little bit of a different outside, view, hopefully will make you stand out. Yeah. So I think that's okay.
No, I do. I think so. And here's a little tip or fact about me. Recently, or not recently, but recent after my graduation of my university, I actually was looking for like marketing jobs, and I was going to marketing and ad agencies, and I played up on my last name being Ransom, and my resume was turned into a ransom note. So how might you play on the creativity if you're looking at more of a creative design space? How might you be able to shift that resume even visually, so that it's more attractive and appealing? I think that's good. I do want to go back real quick to, you can leave the slide off, but the headshot, I really dislike seeing headshots that are decades old. Like, just own who you are today, own your age, own your grayness, own your glasses, like whatever it is. Don't try to be the professional you were in the past. And there's often times that, I'll meet with people and they're like, oh, you look just like you do on your LinkedIn photo. And I'm like, well, thank you. Because, back in the day when you would meet them for coffee or whatever, for that initial introduction, you really want to make sure that you are meeting the person that you saw on LinkedIn. The other thing with that photo, Julia, is there's a way to hide your photo on LinkedIn if you're not already connected to the individual. And I'm against that, because if you are searching for someone and you cannot see their little, their image, that avatar, on their profile, then it just looks like that little, gray and white kind of placeholder image. So I really would say, I would advise you and strongly encourage you to disengage that you really do want to show your face on your LinkedIn profile, and to make that public and searchable, findable, I guess, so that it doesn't look like that little avatar. Yeah.
Also, I'll do it this way. Carrie Munstead, she's one of our sponsors. She is a nationally recognized photographer and does headshots. And she actually has a product and a service that she can do it virtually. And so it's not like studio work, but it's really amazing. And the headshots that you see even at the beginning of this show, she did them through the computer. It's kind of an interesting thing. So there are ways to go. You might be like, oh, well, I can't go out to a studio right now. No, there are ways to go about this. I also want to, before we move on, talk about, I love your LinkedIn comments, Jared, because you really are much more educated about that than I. I'd love for you to talk to me a little bit about how you feel the engagement aspect of LinkedIn and what that could possibly do for you when you're looking for a job, or you're trying, not even looking for a job, but just trying to build your professional value.
Yeah, and it's even above and beyond that professional value, right, Julia? It's really just connecting with individuals, because we all know the power of a relationship. It's who it's who you have access to, and so to really use your network. So I often go on, and we talked about this with another guest. If you have an article or you want to post or publish an article in LinkedIn, that is a great place to do it. It's free, it's easy, and it makes your page or your profile a little bit more searchable. But, to go beyond those likes is to really make comments. And I also lift up my professional colleagues when they have something to share on their page, or, they've posted it. I then share it on my page so that it expands that, the depth and breadth of who sees it and that reach. So that's a great way. And what you had mentioned about a previous guest doing the same thing is, share what you can, or what you're willing to, of course, but lift each other up right now. And then also, so yes, go beyond just the like on any of these social media, and not just LinkedIn, right? Instagram and Facebook and wherever you really have that bandwidth. And I find some really good connections through Instagram. So beyond LinkedIn, it's really, all social media platforms, but to comment and to be interactive with the post is really good. Not only for you and yourself to kind of increase that public awareness and public image, but also it helps them. So
yeah, and I think it keeps you current with what's going on. I think so often, especially in our sector, we get into our jobs, we get into the drama or whatever's happening with our little world, and we forget that we can reach out and have this more of a global, even a global conversation. So along those lines, strategic boosts. I like what you've been saying about this and how you kind of look at this a little bit. I love your idea about the blog posts. I know you are very good at that, Jarrett. You've been ranked on a lot of different national organizations. I think Grant Station, didn't they have you as like one of their top 10 most viewed?
For 2 years in a row.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really powerful, and kudos to you. So I think that's great. We had a fabulous guest come on and talk about blog posts and blogging. You can see that in our archives. But really, I would say try and spend some time on that, because that might end up really helping you to elevate your position as a thought leader within the sector. And I think it's also a great way for you, as Jarrett said, in that LinkedIn resume profile piece, to get that recognition. I wanted to talk briefly about the rule of three. And the rule of three is something that's interesting. And the approach is this: when you are going to be making a change, or you have a quote unquote ask, or you need to fill a void somehow, you turn that into like a self-challenge of three. That means like 3 a day or 3 a week. You're going to ask for that. So Jarrett even yesterday said, people give because they're asked. We need to reach out and ask. So if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for talent, if you're looking for opinions or input, you need to ask. And so that might be a really good challenge, to say 3 times a week I'm going to ask or put myself forward and say, I am looking for a new opportunity, or I am looking for this type of talent, or I have this idea. You need to be more self-promotional. And for folks in our sector, Jarrett, I think this is a hard one.
Really?
Yeah, I think we're not used to promoting ourselves. I think in other sectors, yes, business sectors, but I think in the nonprofit sector, we tend to attract more humble people, or people that aren't going to wave their own flag as wildly.
Okay, so I'm going to share this campaign that I do, Julia, and it's I do it, again, full transparency. I do it when my sales pipeline has become low and a little scary, right? And I call it my Big Hello campaign. And I started it back in 2009 when I started my company. And it is a short and sweet email focused on the person, not on me, on the person that I'm reaching out to. And it's still pretty much a template email that you customize, right? So for instance, if I'm sending it to you, Julia, I would say like, hello, Julia, would love to connect. And the whole point is, well, I would ask them if they had time for coffee. And if not, I'd love to connect over a brief phone conversation, because it's really hard to say no. You don't have time for a phone call, right? And we're talking a 15-minute phone call, not an hour, 15 minutes. So I call this my Big Hello campaign, and I strategically reach out to people in which I think are really connected in the community, and I have a know, like, and trust, respect, and value with this person, right? And so I would reach out and say, hello, Julia, so much has changed over the last 6 months, year, whatever that time frame is. I would love to know what you're up to and what goals you're working on this year and how I might be able to support you. Likewise, I would love to briefly share with you what I'm focused on and to have a conversation. So I call that my Big Hello campaign. But again, I really focus it on the person with that side effect benefit of me also sharing in a reciprocal way what I am up to. And Julia, over time in my own business, there have been services that I have stopped doing, right? And so I still go to my consultancy base and peer base and say, what are you doing now? Because here's what I'm focused on, and here's what I'm not focused on any longer. Because those shift and they change. So, right now, do that power of 3 in a Big Hello campaign and come up with a list of names. I might have some here actually that I've been working on, and just say, okay, I'm going to reach out to 3 today, and I'm going to reach out to 3 tomorrow, and kind of customize that template, or create the template and then customize it for the individuals that you want to send it out to.
Yeah, I like that, because I know that a lot of, I think I've been seeing that more with retired or retiring CEOs who might have just been like, running big organizations or having really high stress jobs, that now want to kind of pull back a little bit and focus in on where their genius is.
Totally.
So taking that professional development and professional value to a very strategic path, whereby they can focus in, zoom in on what it is that they do really well and what it is that they feel successful at and have had success with. Because my sense of it is, Jarrett, and I don't know what you think about, and anybody that's watching us today, if you have a comment, we'd love to hear it. I think that nonprofits are going to be looking more at a consultant contract-based labor force. I think they've learned from this pandemic that they don't need the chairs and desks filled necessarily. They need the talent. And there's a big difference between managing and seeing people in your office versus getting results. And so there might be a place for more acceptance and more comfort in working with that consultant, or, kind of contract labor, if you will. And I don't know what you think about that. And it's not just a consultant. I mean, it could be more of that contract labor kind of position.
Yeah, I do agree. And again, that's exactly where I went in 2009. And our other guest, Mike Worley, mentioned too, like during 9/11, during 2009, and now it's really how might we eliminate that overhead cost, but still tap into that, I call it rock star talent. And there's a lot of amazing rock star talent that is available right now, right? They've either been let go or furloughed, or they're kind of in this limbo position. But I also want to, talk about the power of investing in yourself. And that could look like, you hire your own professional coach or executive coach. And that's something that I've worked on specifically with chief development officers and board chairs is, to hire someone like myself or another executive coach that can really help you elevate your game right now. And for me recently, Julia, I've actually looked at some courses for me to take myself to elevate my own game, specifically with strategic planning. So looking at the local university here, and they have these nonprofit management courses. And I always say, I graduated from college when nonprofit management was not a thing. So I did not go through the nonprofit courses, right? But now I'm looking at, okay, how might I elevate my own game, invest in myself and my own professional trajectory? What other best practices are out there? And I think it's really important that we as professionals do not remain in our own silos, right? We're willing to pick up practices from others and to learn new techniques.
Right. And I agree with you on that. I think there's always so much that we can be learning, and especially during this time when there's a lot of change and there are a lot of new ideas. And so I think that just helps add to your professional value. We've got somebody that just wrote, and I'm not going to use their name. I love the big hello. I'm going to do this even if it has to be my text, email, and phone calls. Thanks for this.
Absolutely.
Somebody just wrote in, I totally agree. The whole recruitment process is going to change. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really interested too, Jared, in what you're thinking about. I want to maybe dig into this a little bit more. Investing in tools for success. I mean, I'm in the training space myself with the American Nonprofit Academy. We have courses, over 100 courses that we have, and some certified things. But I'm wondering what you think about in terms of when you are investing. Do you think that that's also, and I'm saying investing, when you're like taking courses or you're seeking outside coaching or whatever, do you think that that's ever a pathway to finding a job or getting noticed? Have you found that that kind of changes the networking for you?
I don't know that it changes the networking, but it definitely lets that individual that you're working with, it opens up your network of connectivity with that person's network of connectivity, right? So I don't know if I'm answering that the way in which you intended the question to be, but I would say the more people that know who you are, what your talents are, what you're looking for, is to really help to find that great match. And I'm also really big on a cultural match. Like, I want to be in a space, work with a company, with an organization that I feel really well connected with, personally respected, that my own like morals and values are in alignment with theirs. I didn't always start that way, right? Money was green, and I would say yes to just about everything, but I'm really blessed and grateful that now, currently in my career and even during this pandemic, is that I still have the power to say no to those potential clients and contracts that I truly do not feel in alignment with their mission.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I won't, share some other professional resources with them or professional colleagues with them that I do think, hey, I think they're a better fit for you.
Right.
So I think to have that power of no, and what they say is, to say no is really saying yes to something else.
Something else. I agree with you on that. And I think what happens when you are motivated by fear and financial tension, a lot of times, and it's normal and it's natural, you make decisions that maybe ultimately are not the best for you, and they're not as strategic. And I think that's why I'm a big advocate, and keep arming yourself with increasing your professional value. Even though you think, well, I don't need a job, I'm good to go. You just don't know. You don't know what situations might come down the pike. And if you're not prepared, then you end up taking jobs or getting yourself into an environment that's not healthy, or you stay in an environment that's not healthy. And that's the other thing. We have so much burnout in our sector, and we have so much, just people get embroiled in really tough situations that then we lose them. We lose them to the sector completely because they're just trash. They just can't function. And that's not good. Hey, Evelyn, Dr. Evelyn Jabri, I never say her name correctly, who's been a guest on the show, and she's going to actually come back and have a really interesting discussion with us about angel investors in the nonprofit sector, which I can't wait. But anyway, she wrote, I agree, Julia. Consultants and contract experience labor is becoming the norm in multiple sectors as it provides flexibility. Orgs can quickly adjust costs in an evolving, uncertain ecosystem. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, what do you think about looking at this, maybe not as somebody who's looking at a full-fledged navigation into being a consultant, but they can do this in between pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this could be an additional contract or project in which they're looking to supplement. I am big on diversifying my own revenue sources, just as I preach for my nonprofit clients to do the same, is to really be intentional with those diversification, and so I think it's definitely a good opportunity. But again, I do want to advise to, don't take on more than what you can handle, not only for your clients or the organizations, institutions in which you're working with, but for yourself, right? To maintain that level of balance, because as we talk about that burnout, it's real, and you want to make sure that you have enough to take care of yourself, your family, your personal obligations and commitments. So to just be mindful of how much you do take on.
Right. Well, hey, this is like gone by so fast. As you can tell, this is a big topic. We're going to be discussing it more. Join us on Monday, next Monday, because we are going to have the CEO of Staffing Boutique on, and she's going to be coming to us from New York. She's in the city, and she has her hands wrapped around this amazing time in our sector. I'm Julia Patrick. I've been joined by my cohort hero. I say cohort, but really co-host hero, Jarrett Ransom, the nonprofit nerd. It's been really exciting to have you with us. We are very, very appreciative of our sponsors. Thank you so much to our sponsors that have been staying with us. And this has been the Nonprofit Show. I want to end like I try to every day and say, stay well so you can do well. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.